I was adopted at birth, reconnected with and started financially supporting my birth family in my early 20s, but I don't know if I trust my biosis anymore. Super long post, thanks for reading. I was adopted as a baby from an African country and raised in America. I didn't know I was adopted until I was 14. I started visiting my bio family. Bio mom is in her early 60s, bio sis is late 30s, bio bro is early 30s, on trips to my birth country along with my adoptive family, then lost touch when I was 20 because we lost their address/phone numbers. I found them when I was 23, and about a year after we reconnected, I started sending my bio mom rent money through my bio sis so my bio mom could stop working. She was working as a maid, as she was pretty old and her rent wasn't too much to cover considering I have a reasonably well-paying job. My bio sis is married and has several kids, a few live with her in a so-so apartment her husband rents, and her eldest child, who is severely disabled, lives in Europe with her husband who is an abusive drunk. My bio mom and bio bro live in a terrible apartment in a slum. My bio sis says her husband doesn't let her work. Her husband's only income is welfare from the European country he lives in, and my bio bro has never held a job for more than a few months. Over the last few years, my bio sis and bio mom have asked for larger sums of money a few times for medical procedures or school fees, which I've always sent. I am very, very fond of my nephews and nieces and I speak to them on the phone fairly often. I really try to treat them to nice experiences when I'm with them, and I constantly reaffirm that they will only get presents from me if they do well in school, and I hold them to that when I visit. In April, my adoptive family member gave me a large sum of money to send my bio family. My bio family knew the money wasn't mine, but they didn't know where it came from. I think I told them it was from a religious organization in my city or something. We agreed that they would use it to get my bio bro driving lessons so he can become a taxi driver. The deal was that once he got his license, I'd pay for a taxi permit and car rental in their town so he can have his own income. When I asked how the lessons were going, my bio mother and bio sister told me they got the driving lessons but he keeps making excuses not to go. My bio sister and bio mom have been very candid with me about my bio brother, and I don't have much of a relationship with him. When I visit, he will come say hi then disappear if I take all of us out to eat or to an amusement park or something. Culturally, it's shameful for an older brother to allow a younger sister to pay for him explicitly. I knew that my bio brother was severely and chronically unmotivated to change his life, so I decided I would no longer try to help him out specifically. I also knew that though he won't accept money from me explicitly, a lot of the money I send for my bio mom goes to my bio brother, who spends it on cafes and cigarettes. After the driving lessons fiasco, I decided it makes more sense for me to buy an apartment for them rather than sending money directly for rent, and I plan to visit in January to get that process started. Last month, out of nowhere, my bio sis told me her eldest child in Europe had been taken by Child Protective Services because her husband was neglecting them. She told me she was going to try migrating without papers to that European country through a different European country to try to find him. After explaining the situation, she asked me for a somewhat large sum of money. I tried to convince her not to do it and said she'd probably just get deported, but she said her mind was set. I didn't understand how she had gotten a passport or a plane ticket, but I didn't want to push her on the inconsistencies in her story. I sent her the money and she sent me seemingly real pictures of the gate at the airport and called me when she landed in that country. She said she'd be walking through a forest to get to the other country where her son was. Then she went radio silent for about a week. I called my bio mom and she said that my bio sister was detained and was going to be deported. I studied migration law in college and was confused how she would be deported so quickly. From what I studied, deportation processes for undocumented migrants in most European countries take at least 2 weeks, though many people are held indefinitely in refugee camps, but I don't know how those policies may have changed in the last few years. A few days later, my bio sister called me from her home and said her husband had taken her kids to his family's farmland and was going to press charges against her for abandoning them. Here is where her story started to fall apart. There were many inconsistencies and contradictions. It was very clear that she was lying. She seemed to be implying she needed money for a lawyer, but I called bullshit and told her that since she left the kids with our bio mom and the kids were perfectly fine, the police would never actually arrest her. After that, she went quiet for a minute or so. Then, she asked me whether I was still visiting in January to buy an apartment for them to live in. I was feeling wary, so I said I wasn't sure if I could get the time off work and asked if she or our bio mom had viewed any apartments yet. She said she went to a realtor's office and was told the realtor needed to know how much money I had in my bank account before he could show her any apartments. I've never heard of this before in my life. I've been apartment viewing in that country with other family in the past and have never been asked to show a bank statement to be shown an apartment. I'm pretty sure she's been lying to me, but I have no idea why. I've never denied her or my bio mom money before, even for much more innocuous things, and I've even sent them money to hold birthday parties for the kids, which I've attended virtually through video chats, for religious holidays and random gifts. My adoptive family and my friends think I'm being lied to and taken advantage of, but I know that my bio family genuinely do live in poverty, so I don't know why they would make up implausible stories rather than just ask for money for their actual needs. I'm not sure how to approach this. If I accuse them of lying or ask for proof, it'll harm our relationship, if they're actually lying or not. If they're not lying, I look like in a hole for accusing them of lying about such horrific situations, especially when I'm the lucky rich one who lives in America. If they are lying, I don't know how to accept them lying to me when I would have given them money for whatever they might have needed anyway. To be clear, the total amount of money I've sent them has not been a heavy burden on me financially. I'm grateful to have a well-paying job, stable finances, a good amount of savings, and my family as a safety net. I don't want to sound condescending, but the best equivalent is if a kid makes up a school trip to get $50 from their parents. It's not that I'm rich, but I'm much more concerned about the lying than the money. I never had any reason to be suspicious in the past, but my bio sister's latest stories have too many holes to be believable. I don't want my suspicions to impact the relationships I have with my bio family, especially my nieces and nephews, but I also don't want to be lied to. Should I bring up my concerns to my bio sister to clarify what's going on, or should I just believe her and keep sending money, or should I stop sending them money altogether? Comment. You're going to look crazy or you're going to look stupid, and right now you're looking stupid. You're being used. I'm sorry, I'm willing to bet they only contact you for money. If you stop sending them money, I'm sure that ends your relationship with them. That's not a real relationship. I'm willing to bet they're living way above their means now that they have a cash cow in America. They might have lived in poverty before, but you aren't responsible for them. Your adopted parents raised you, educated and love you unconditionally, not just for the money you spend. Stop seeking validation from your bio family and start paying for therapy. Tell them something happened, e.g. someone stole money / account froze due to fraud, overtaxed issue with payslip, and you can only send a small amount of money. Then look into their story a bit more and try to fact check, but also see if there is a change in the way they treat you. If you're uncomfortable about outright challenging their stories, the deportation alone sounds fishy, then yes, tell them you have no extra money to soar at the moment, and see if they act differently when they're not treating you like an ATM. Being too jaded after all these Reddit stories of giving constant money to people, ESP family member who never seem to stop asking, "Dudes are good," the last thing they'll do is say, "Oh well, manage, we just want to spend quality time with you." You're willing to send money to ease their poverty. Maybe you should stick to sending a regular, reliable amount that would ease circumstances without being an amount they could live off and therefore become reliant. They must still be responsible for themselves and their affairs, and if you make them reliant, you risk their future, because you absolutely cannot guarantee your own future ability to send money. You may feel confident of this, but there's no ability to predict the future. Should you choose to buy an apartment outright, then I wouldn't suggest sending any more money in either lump sum or regular payments. Charity from the right perspective of mind can do good things, but too much of a good thing can lead to worse circumstances for the receiver, who can lose their ability to fend for themselves. You say you don't want to call your bio family out on their lies. You make yourself seem a fool for this and place in doubt the value of your relationship which you say you wish to preserve. From my reading, there's already no relationships to preserve. Biology is not a predictor of shared morals. I'm glad I could help in a small way. I'm also pleased you are okay and have an honest understanding of the situation, because I really hate to hear/see good people taken advantage of. Really makes my blood boil. You're quite right that the responsibility for their morals lies with them, and you've still got to live by yours. So thank you OP for being you, and for your generosity of spirit, and I wish you every success. Story 2. My straight friend is giving me mixed signals and I have a crush on him. What's going on? So, the thing is, I have met this boy through a server on Discord that we usually talk about games and memes and stuff. He always knew that I was gay from the start because I always made that clear and I always talked about it on this server, although we had never interacted at the time. So about 2 months ago, he sent me a private message and we started talking and we hit off pretty well. We live pretty near each other, about 4 hours drive, have similar interests, and he made me feel very comfortable talking to him. In the very beginning of our friendship, during the first 3 or 4 weeks, we always used to do these long voice calls and we would always talk about our lives, our families, and get very intimate, talk all day long. I've started to notice some flirty behaviors from him in those voice calls, like saying he'd love to sleep listening to my voice as we speak, saying that it must be easy for me to get with guys, and he would always ask me about my sexual life, preferences, how it was coming out in a religious family, etc., which I considered to be very thoughtful and caring questions to ask. After those very nice first weeks, he started pulling away, being aloof and distant for about 2 weeks, which made me very confused and thinking that I must have done something wrong or offended him. So I asked him what was going on, that I've noticed that he was distant, and said it would be cool if we spent more time together, as we've been doing, as to he responded that he would try to keep a more close contact. But nothing really changed, and he was still being distant about a week ago. So I called him out once again, told him that the friendship wasn't working out that way, and I said it would be better if we both stayed apart, to which he replied almost begging me to stay, that he was lucky to have met me, that he likes my company a lot and would like to keep this friendship, and then he kinda soothed me, and then, we start talking daily as we used to do. The thing that is confusing me is that last week he mentioned he would be seeing a girl in the weekend, so I thought it was fine for me to talk about my love life as well, even though at the time I had already figured out that I was crushing on him. So I mentioned this guy from my city that I went on a date, and he went full jealous, ignored me for an entire day, said that he wouldn't like to hear about my dates, etc. Fast forward to last Friday, we were on a voice call, and we kinda started to flirt, call each other nicknames, playfully joke about each other accents and family. Then, he subtly mentioned the idea of coming to my city in the end of 2023/beginning of 2024, to which I replied positively, although I didn't invite him, asked me if I was seeing anybody or on Tinder, and said that I'm one of the persons that he mostly liked to talk to, which I found very sweet.